Thanks. So let's rewind it back before we even start. My vision of summer 2018. So it's nice to be back here. I gave a talk last year. I gave that same talk through a lot of conferences, and I got bored of it. So I was like, okay, you need some new material. I need to, get my head together. I need to get my thoughts together. I need to work on something. So my plan was I'm going to release something. I'm going to make something awesome so I can talk about something during the summer. This was my vision. I'm going to code, right? And this is the reality of my summer 2018. And you might think, oh, because it's summer and it's hot and you were sweating while you were coding. No, I wasn't coding that much, but I was posting some polarizing, this kind of weird tweets where I would get like 198 replies. And trust me, I've read only 10, and then I muted. But I believe that 181 of them are actually nice things about me, about my mom. It's just the best comments ever. So what I wanted here with this tweet, I don't want to defend this tweet or something, but I just wanted a discussion, all right? Because when you see all of these words, you usually pick a side. You're either one side or other side. If you're using the one thing, you hate the other thing. It doesn't have to be that way. So what I was trying to say here is, what if we can forget about the technologies that we're actually using right now? They don't have any names. And we start with web development from scratch, like from zero, and we have to figure out different ways to do things, right? So let's figure out in which way we would do CSS. We don't call it CSS. We don't call it CSS in JS. We don't give it a name. It's just styling. And you have two things. You explain it to someone who's just starting, and he's like, and you will be like, I have an idea. Here's how we can style things. You put everything into 5 different documents, which are really huge, and they have like thousands of rules. And then you point one of your elements to like 7 of those rules, and maybe, hopefully, you will get it styled the way you want. That's way number 1. And then you explain way number 2. You don't name it. We don't use a name. We don't talk about performance. We just use some description of the thing. And we say, this other thing, you have an element, you style it in a certain way, and those styles appear on the element. That's how you describe it. I think that everyone would say, I like the other thing because the first one might break, right? And then you have the same thing with the data fetching. You describe it as, if you want to fetch a couple of different things, you can do like 10 different calls to the server and then combine them and normalize them, put them in a Redux. Redux doesn't exist. Put them in a store, normalize them, blah, blah, blah. Or whatever you want, just write it in a query, and then you get it. I think the second one sounds better. I think so. They don't exist yet. So I don't want to defend the tweet too much. We're not going to talk about the third thing, template JSX. Like, we're React developers. We don't care about templates. My idea here is I was a bit hurt by some of the replies because they were saying you are hurting beginners and you have like this kind of influence on them and blah, blah, blah. And I felt weird and bad because before every talk that I do, I have this segment about how everyone should give talks and blah, blah, blah. So I had that segment, and I was planning to remove it from this new talk, but I said, because of the replies there, I'm going to keep it, and I'm going to do this segment before every talk that I do. So what is this segment? I'm not sure if I did it last year, but anyway, I'm just going to do it before every talk. I have a problem with these 3 words. All right, we should just erase them. Ninja developer, senior developer, rockstar developer. Let's start one by one. Ninja developer. Have you ever seen a person on a roof doing Webpack at 4 a.m.? I don't think so, right? Then let's go to the other one, senior developer. How the hell do you define this? There's no definition for this, right? For me, the only senior developer can be this guy. He's a senior, he's a developer, that's a senior, or this guy, senior developer. So this could be also a senior developer. And then we have the third one, rockstar developer. Have you guys seen a real rockstar? They have hair, guitars, they actually rock stages, stadiums, and so on. So this is a rockstar. This is everything but a rockstar. Let's make it clear. Except this guy, he's working on the Yarn team, and he's going to remove node modules from our project. So for me, this guy is the biggest rockstar, although he doesn't have a guitar. He has a cat. So cats are better, exactly. And then we have, he rocked the stage, this phrase that we're using, he, she, whatever. The reality is this, at least from my talks and many speakers that I know of, this, he read his notes from made on a plane slides, trembling for 30 minutes while praying that people won't find out he's a fraud. So this is closer to the reality. So what I'm trying to say is I want to encourage everyone to give talks at meetups, conferences, and so on, because at the end of the day, we're all code monkeys trying to make weird libraries work together by writing shitty hacks. We can just deal with that. That being said, thank you. Thanks. That being said, ich bin Kitze, I'm a ninja senior. No, I'm kidding. I'm also not German, so it sounds German. I'm Macedonian, but this is just my nickname. What I do in life is I'm making some products. I said that I love open source. That's not true. I like open sourcing things. I don't want to maintain them later, so I just scratch that off. And I love teaching. We did a workshop. We did 2 workshops here at React Berlin. So previously the material was everything about React. Now the material is just like hooks, 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 some GraphQL hooks. So everything is about hooks now. So my talk is called Navigating the Hype-Driven Front-End Development World Without Going. It's a bit of a mouthful. And I used insane here, right? And then I sent it to a couple of people. I mean, a couple of conferences posted it. And someone said, no, 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 no. Someone messaged me and said, don't use that. Like, it's 2018. You cannot use that word. I'm like, OK, can I use crazy? No, no, you just got to remove that. I'm like, OK, fine. I'm just going to remove that from my talk if you also remove it from other things. So here's Aerosmith's song, Unstable, and Seal, Unhinged, and Beyonce, Unbalanced in Love, okay? They're also not gonna use crazy in the words. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna rename it, I'm gonna put something else, don't panic, it's fine. So I decided I'm gonna call it Navigating the Hype-Driven Front-End Development World Without Going Nuts. I'm like, but probably there's gonna be someone in the audience who's like, well, actually, my second cousin is allergic, so you cannot say nuts because, all right, we're not gonna use anything. So 2018, I give up, we're not using these words. So this is just navigating the hype-driven front-end development world, period. This is your vision of yourself after the conference. So you think like, oh, it's gonna be really nice, we're gonna chill, there's an after party, we're gonna drink some beer, we're gonna relax. But you're not. This is gonna be you after the conference, like me this summer. Why? Because every person that gets here on stage injects different kinds of thoughts in you. And now, you can't wait for Monday to come to refactor everything. This guy mentioned JSS, you refactor JSS. Jack mentioned testing, you do like test-driven development suddenly. So you have all of these thoughts, you want to refactor everything, just like that person said on stage. And yeah, this is going to be you after the conference, this is me, because I'm not listening to the talks, I was working on the talk up there. Why do we have this? Why do we have this thing? Like right now, you have FOMO, like the fear of missing out is building inside of you. Like as you listen to these talks on stage, you get more and more FOMO. So let's see, what is the word FOMO? This is the boring Wikipedia definition. It says a pervasive apprehension that others might be having fun and you're absent. Basically, it's that. But everyone has their own definition of FOMO. Like everyone fears that they're missing out on something. And my personal definition is FOMO to something. So this definition is fear of mofos on Twitter tweeting dev stuff that you cannot find elsewhere. And this is a huge problem, not in React, not in front-end development, like all the developers ever. If you don't have a Twitter account, you're blessed, but on the other hand, you're missing out so much. So right now, I'm doing this talk. I'm like, but maybe someone somewhere is posting about a hook that I haven't seen yet. You know, so this constant fear that things are happening on Twitter is real, because there are some discussions, because in a reply of a reply, you might find some valuable information that you cannot find it on Reddit, on Medium, it's not in a blog post, it's not in a course. So it's hard to keep up. So how do we minimize this fear? That's gonna be the point of the talk. Why do we have FOMO? First, we have to see why do we have this. So we doubt ourselves, we doubt our code, we focus on the wrong things, we obsess with the wrong metrics. God, we're terrible at this. We have a lot of free time. Like if you have a PlayStation at your office, you have a lot of free time as a developer. And we love to procrastinate. So we're going to dive into this one by one or two by two. So we focus on the wrong things and we obsess with the wrong metrics. So what does this mean? It's best explained with an example. So I had a friend and we were talking about GraphQL. I was just learning about GraphQL back then. And it's just a casual chat over a beer. And he's like, dude, we have this GraphQL server. Trust me, it's the fastest thing ever. So we built like 7 layers of cache. And this layer is going into this one, and this one is caching, so we separated them. We have like through different areas of the world, blah, blah, blah. Our queries are, I don't know how many, like I lost him after the 5th word. I'm like, yeah. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, I get it, GraphQL stuff, right? And then he's talking, and I'm like, dude, just stop for a second. Are you Facebook? Are you building the next, I don't know, Pinterest or something? Why do you need these fast queries? And he's like, well, we're building a landing page for a hospital. Like, there's not going to be a situation ever where the nurse is going to be like, doctor, we're losing the patient because our landing page is not fast enough. Why did you optimize it that much? It doesn't matter. So we obsess with these stupid metrics like bundle size, and sometimes that doesn't matter. We doubt ourselves and we doubt our code. We do this all the time. So if this is you, I made something, it works and I think it's awesome, but I'm not sure if it's right, just raise your hand. Everyone except the lazy ones, like we all have this feeling, right? We all have this feeling that we're wrong all the time. as developers. But the question is, what is right and who is right? In our minds, no matter what we do, no matter how good it is, no matter how fast it is, we always have this person, like we imagine this person that's actually better than us. But there's no such person. It all depends on the situation. So in our crazy community, sorry, in our nuts community that's nuts, we have this kind of articles, like you would see this popping up on Medium all the time. So we go in one direction. We say, high-order components suck, and then we have the other direction, and we say, render props are everything. We had this discussion, right? Like we decided we don't like them. And then we have the other one. How about a healthy mix? Sometimes you use the one thing, sometimes you use the other thing, now you use hooks. But find a good mix between the three of them. It doesn't have to be the one or the other. And then we have like a couple of years, let's say 1-2 years ago, we said we need Redux for everything. And then suddenly we changed our mind and we're like, Redux is dead. Medium article, Redux is dead. So we declared it dead. But we declared it dead like thousands of times. We just declare and we're beating like a dead horse. Redux is dead, Redux is dead. And it's not. Like a lot of people, like millions of people, not millions, I don't know, I'm not going to use metrics, but a lot of people still use Redux. So those articles aren't helping anyone. And we saw those articles, like when the new context API came out, people were like, oh, we can just replace Redux with the new. No, you can't, because Redux is using context. So now it's going to use the new context API. You cannot replace Redux with it. So this is dead. And now it's dead again with hooks. We have used reducer, and we can just replace it with hooks, right? No, you can't. So stop it. It's not dead. So Redux is going to use all of these new techniques under the hood, but it's still going to have some performance benefits. It's going to be more optimized code. Yes, it's nice that we don't have to go out and reach for an external state management library anymore, because we can cook something up with hooks and reducer and so on, but it's not a replacement for Redux. We all know the person who's like living on a bleeding edge and they're like, you haven't tried Redux Helicopter? It changed my life. It's the best library ever. You have to try it in your company, Refactor Everything. And if you know me, you're like, wait a minute, isn't this ironic that you are talking about this? Didn't you open source 2 apps using hooks already? Yes, I did. You can find them here. Didn't you already do like 5 workshops using hook in the past month? Yes, I did. You can find them here. And your tweets are actually the problem of my FOMO. So yeah, I'm a bit guilty. So sometimes I just invent these combinations of technologies just to see people's reaction. So I mentioned CoffeeScript with technologies that weren't out back then, like CRA 2 and Babel 7 weren't out. And people, like in the replies, you would see people, wait, is this real? Is CoffeeScript back? Am I missing on? No, dude, like CoffeeScript is dead, just chill. But you would see people think, all the time they think like, yeah, thanks. They think like there's a magic combination that some other person or other team is using that I don't know about. It's fucking CoffeeScript. So you gotta figure out the context for the person. So you gotta know my story before you listen to my advice online, right? So I work alone. I don't work for clients. I made a rap diss track about the web platform. Like, that's silly. I have all the time in the world to experiment, and I'll make a Christmas tree out of this slide. So why would you trust me on any advice? I don't get it. Who does this on stage? I don't know. So you gotta evaluate the context. Thank you. All right. And yet, I still don't blindly jump on the latest bleeding, although it may look like it. For example, I needed to change the material for my workshop using hooks, because if I talk about higher-order components, that's outdated now, right? So I had to learn everything, I had to make a couple of apps, I had to learn them. But I don't blindly jump on everything that comes out. So a lot of these technologies that are popular, there are blog posts, there are courses and so on, I don't need them for now. Like, I know a bit of a thing like of CSS grid, I know a couple of properties. TypeScript, I can do like this a string, this a number, but I cannot do like complex things and so on. So as soon as I need something, I'm going to learn it and I'm going to put it in my project. React Router 4. I'm teaching React and I don't know about what is the API for React Router. I wrote my own router with mobx, I don't know, 1-2 years ago. It's silly. It's like not as performant, it's not as good, but it works for my apps. So I don't have to learn this API. So I don't blindly jump on the latest and greatest all the time. How do we have FOMO, NOMO? How do we kill this FOMO thing? We got to recognize the breaking points on when do we jump on the next thing. So these 3 questions are important. How easy is the transition? Is now the right time? And do I really need it? So when I wanted to jump to Flexbox, it was an easy decision. It wasn't an easy transition because I have to learn this Flexbox syntax, which I still don't know. So I'm Googling the syntax here and there. Nobody knows Flexbox. But it was the right thing to do because finally in my apps, I wanted to center things and I wanted it to work. So I was like, this thing exists now. It's supported. I'm going to jump to Flexbox. Then we have Angular and React. So I knew about React for, I don't know, 6 months, maybe a year. Nick was actually telling me about React. Dude, it's the best thing. We're using it with flow types. I'm like, all right, we're using Angular in our app right now. We got to finish this for the client. We cannot just jump at this point. But eventually, I'm going to learn, and I'm going to see if it's good. So the breaking point for me was when they released Angular 2, and I was like, let me try React. And that was a breaking point when I tried React on a new project, and I liked it more. So I just stuck with it. REST to GraphQL. So every time I used REST or Firebase in my projects, I mean, I didn't know there was another solution. So I was using it, but I was like, something must pop up where I don't like query 10 things in different API requests and combine them. Like that's what I was doing with Firebase. Just fetch the user, fetch the categories, fetch this, fetch that, then combine them, then make a mess. I'm like, there must be something in the future where I could combine easily and decide what I want on the front end. So when I saw GraphQL, I was like, great. The next project, we're going to have opportunity. The backend developers on the project said, we have to refactor this app. And I was like, why don't we learn GraphQL? So I found the right spot to learn GraphQL. And then we have, nobody does this, all right? Has anyone in the audience done this transition? Nobody, right? Right. Respect. So Gatsby is like the hype, right? It has 50,000 stars. Everyone loves Gatsby. It's the best thing. But for me, it stopped me from updating my landing page. So if it slows me down, if it stops me from being productive, I don't care how many stars it has on GitHub. I have to change it. So as you know, Gatsby is using GraphQL, which is ironic because I just said I like GraphQL. But in order to change something in your data, you have to change 3 queries for Gatsby to make it happy and to finally not display errors on the landing page. So every time I thought, I should update the workshops on my site, and then I remember, oh, it's using Gatsby. Fuck it, it's going to be outdated. So that was my behavior, well, because this was blocking me. So I found React Static. The transition was really easy. You just change the config file from the one thing to the other thing, and now it's really simple. It doesn't use GraphQL. You can just throw whatever data you want beforehand, and it builds your static site. So for me, it was great. And then, what do we have here? Oh, yeah. I started with CSS. Then I adopted Sass. Then I adopted BEM. Then I realized I'm becoming Angelina Jolie with these adoptions. And I realized that I'm actually babysitting CSS. So I had to make a transition, right? I have to make this transition from Sass and BEM, which is babysitting CSS, to something else. So first time I saw Aphrodite from Khan Academy, and I was like, okay, this is not as performant as CSS, but it's easier for me as a developer. I like it. Then I saw styled components, and my initial reaction was, what the fuck? Nobody's going to put CSS styles into template literals. They proved me wrong. Everyone is using styled components now, but I still didn't like it. I tried it for a side project. I didn't like putting things into template literals. Then when I saw Glamorous, they pitched it as the same thing as styled components, just with objects. I said, great. I like objects. I'm already using objects, so I can easily just move this project from Aphrodite to Glamorous. And then I would never, ever switch from Glamorous, right? Like, I saw Emotion. There's like 50 libraries that came out. I don't care. They said, like, this is more performant. You should jump to Emotion. Everyone likes it, blah, blah, blah. But I didn't care. I couldn't bother with Emotion until the author of Glamorous said, guys, you got to migrate because I'm not planning to support this project anymore, so you might as well find another solution like Emotion. It was really easy. You just replace the import, and that's it. And I wasn't planning. I'm not going to move from Emotion, except for some of my projects. But I didn't want to do it. This guy goes into my landing page, and he just refactors Emotion into style components just to prove that it's the same thing. And nowadays, finally, they support the same API. So the same objects API, they support all the same features, and they're the same. If you ask me what's the difference, I don't even know. I just merged his pull request. I felt bad. I was like, okay, he made the effort. I'm going to merge it. And I might try it again, but it's the same API as Emotion, so it doesn't matter to me. The thing is, you got to sleep on these decisions, right? I heard about a guy, there was a story about a guy like who was freezing his credit cards, but not freezing them in the bank app. Like, he was a shopping addict, and before what he would do, he would go out shopping and he would buy everything because he had a credit card. So now he froze it, and if he wanted something when he saw it, he was like, I'm going to sleep on this decision, and tomorrow I'm going to unfreeze it, come back to the store and buy it. 99% of the time, he didn't go back. So that's how he cured the shopping addiction. We have this same thing with NPM modules, right? I heard like a speaker at the previous conference told me, well, what I do usually when I explore new technologies, I just start all of these repos, and when I start a project, I go back to my start repos and I just install everything. This is just like the shopping addict, but with NPM modules. So you got to sleep on all of these decisions. When you decide, should I take this piece of code and replace it with a module? Don't. Just wait a little bit, sleep on these decisions, and then you will figure out if it's really easy, if it's going to take you more time, then it actually fixes something for you. But what I'm not saying is don't get too comfortable, all right? You gotta know that this thing exists. You still have to read about these things. You don't have to dive into topics. So stop learning just in case stuff. So how our brain works as developers, at least mine, is I see an article about SVG. I'm not even using an SVG in the project. And the article says how to optimize SVGs when you have, I don't know, hundreds of them. I don't have them. But I'm like, just in case, maybe. You don't know what's gonna happen. It's life, right? Life might throw you like 100 SVGs. You gotta handle them. And I learn everything about SVG, and when I actually need to use SVG, you forget the syntax. So now if you ask me to draw a circle, I have to Google how to draw a circle in SVG. So stop learning this just in case stuff. Less abstraction. So let's talk about abstractions. I have like 2 scientific images here, scans of our brain. So this is the areas of the brain that light up when we have cocaine. It's even worse with sugar, so more things light up in the brain. And this is my Photoshop scan of how our brain looks like when it recognizes the opportunity to abstract a piece of code. You feel so smart, right? You see something that looks like the other thing, and you're like, oh, this is a function. Oh, this is a class. This is a person that extends from Ninja, and then you create all of these class abstractions. And then you're screwed, because you're going to lose time making the abstraction and then reverting the abstraction. So we have this problem with functions, with classes, with CSS styles, with style components, with whatever. We just love to abstract things. So my advice is a bit weird, and as developers, we don't like it. But what I'm using is more copy-paste. Okay, just copy-paste the thing 3 to 5 times, right? Thank you. It makes sense. It's going to feel bad. Like every time you're going to look at it, you're like, oh, I want to refactor you so bad. You're going to hate it. You're going to hate it. But you have to learn to live with it, right? You can see it copy-pasted 5 times, and then the 5th time, maybe you're going to figure out, okay, this is definitely an abstraction. I'm going to abstract it into a function. Otherwise, it's going to create a problem for you. So I told you what not to focus on, what not to spend your time on. But what you might ask, what can we focus on instead? Do you remember this, guys, this gang? This is why we build apps, and we're forgetting this. Like day to day, when we go to work, when we do our thing, we're forgetting that we're actually doing this for the end users, not for our own entertainment. So we love to entertain ourselves during work by doing this positive procrastination. So what is positive procrastination? When you have a form with 2 fields, username and password, and you can solve it in like 3 minutes, and you can go and have a lunch. But instead, you decided you need Redux Form and Redux Saga. You spent 8 hours on making a login form with Redux Form and Redux Saga. And you feel like a champion, right? But your user, at the end, like you go home, you tell your wife, honey, the day was amazing, and it didn't. Like, the user at the end of the day is going to go, and he's going to say, oh, fine, I can log in. This is fucking slow. He doesn't care. He can log in. It doesn't matter if it's Redux Saga. It's just your own entertainment. Just try to think of this next time you want to dive into a certain rabbit hole when you do something, and think like, will this matter to the user? No, it's just my own entertainment. What else can you focus on? Before we talk about that, let's see what do we want to talk about as developers? We want to talk about our editor themes. We want to talk about fonts. We want to talk about folders. Jesus, like, do you know how many discussions I've heard about folders? Well, we put them in like separate views, and then each view has a component, and then the other person is like, no, you need a flat structure, but for every page, and then Abram of Twitter, just put everything in one fucking folder, every component, everything you have. It's that simple. Stop discussing that. Then we have tweets. We love to discuss these tweets. We have tabs, space, semicolons. Just put a semicolon. Deal with it. Like we decided on it. Move on. Webpack is hard. All right, we know it. We don't have to discuss it. Framework wars, versioning of Angular. Haha, they're using 8 now, right? It's funny. And then we have the jokes. Can these jokes die? Yes, we cannot exit Vim. It has to die. And jokes about the cloud. Do you know the cloud is actually someone else's computer? Yeah, we know. It's not funny. It's 2018. All right? And what developers don't want to talk about is more important. But it's going to get a bit uncomfortable because we don't like this word. It's the M word, God. We don't want to talk about money. We would discuss everything in the world except users, what matters, and money. So what I'm saying is, this happened at a conference. So we held workshops, and they said, like every speaker, can you do a little like roundtable discussion so you can pick your own topic, and then you will meet the attendees at the other hotel, and you can discuss whatever you want with them. So someone picked React, someone picked jQuery, someone picked PHP, whatever. And there was freelancing, so I was a freelancer, so I decided, oh, cool, we can talk with people about freelancing. But they said, you got to run to the other hotel after a workshop. And I finish, and I run there, and I'm sweating. I'm like, oh, cool, we're going to talk, it's going to be cool. I don't want people to wait for me, you know, and I'm running, and I'm entering there, and I'm sweaty. And this is my table. Like, this is a picture of the table. Nobody wanted to discuss freelancing, right? The PHP table is full. The Laravel 7.3 table is full. Freelancing, no. Nobody wants to talk about it. So what if I told you that VS Code Material Pale Purple Midnight 2.7, the theme, is not going to pay your rent? The funny thing is, it's never been easier to make money as a developer. We have all the resources, even though you're not backend. Like, I'm not a backend developer. I can throw a backend with these services like GraphQL, Prisma, Firebase, whatever. You have all the tools. Everything is easy. You have like free hosting. Back in the day, I had to drag things into FileZilla and pay a shady hosting, right? Now I can just put everything on Netlify and it works. I have CI. Everything is super easy. We're just not using it enough. If you're asking, why is this surgeon crying? Like, why is he sad? What is on that paper? Why would this person be sad? I'm going to tell you what is on that paper. It says you studied for 15 years, but someone out there's a nerdy teen who learned Vue.js in 2 months on Udemy, made Tinder for cats. It's making more money than you're ever going to make. Ever. I mean, it's sad, but it's true, right? He's going to reach a certain amount after a certain degree, college, whatever. He's going to spend so many years. And then he's not going to make enough money as the Vue kid or React or whatever. So it's not fair, but it's true because it's easy nowadays. There are wrong ways to go for this and there are right ways. So the wrong ways is a quote from one of my ex-colleagues. He said, this summer I'm going to read a book and then my boss is going to acknowledge this and raise the salary. He won't care, trust me. Or when you tell yourself that you're going to increase your value by doing one of these things. You say, oh, I'm going to upgrade this, I'm going to learn this. It doesn't matter, okay? At the end of the day, your value is not the things that you know. So the skills that you have don't have much to do with the amount of money that you're making as a developer. I'm going to give you this example about Nomads Lists. So this is a site about nomads which started as an Excel spreadsheet or something. And the guy who made it and his brother started learning web development at the same time. So Peter, the guy who is the author of this, said, look, I have this spreadsheet and I really want to learn like any programming language, any code, in order to turn this into a platform to have users and to actually help users to live like a nomad. So that was his goal. And his brother's goal was like, I don't trust that PHP jQuery thing. I'm going to learn Meteor.js. So after a couple of months, Peter has Nomad List, and his brother knows Meteor.js. And Meteor.js is now irrelevant, right? So Peter did something. He built on a platform. The code might not be the prettiest code ever, but he has a platform and he has users. The saddest part about this, I mean, happy for him, alone, as a PHP plus jQuery developer, he never touched a framework in his life, with some pretty terrible code that I've seen screenshots of. He's posting them on Twitter all the time. He's making more than 50K per month alone. And we're not, like, we're smart, right? We know this, we know that, but when you compare it, like he focused on the users, his site is fast enough, it works well enough for most users, it works on mobile, it's not as fancy, it's not as code optimized and stuff, but he focused on the right goal. It's not going to be that easy in the upcoming years. So just not so long ago, we knew a person who knows a person who knows a person who knows a person who can do a website for you, right? It wasn't that easy. So the person who was making these websites was charging, I don't know, 5K for a website because he was the only one in town. And you have to know him and you have to wait, and it was a shitty website at the end. Now, you want to throw a landing page, you go to Wix, you paid $3, you drag and drop a few things, and you have a landing page. If you think the same thing is not going to happen to front-end development, you're very wrong, because you got to see what happened, and it's going to happen again. It's just going to happen much faster. And I think we're too lazy, and we're not even remotely prepared for what's about to come. And let me tell you about this guy. So this is a factory Elector. So he was entertaining people in a factory, all right? Because they were bored, they were doing some like mundane job, and they needed someone to entertain. So this guy just read the newspaper. The thing is, this guy didn't have Hacker News, right? He couldn't read an article that AI or something is going to happen. He couldn't go on Reddit and find an article that the radio is coming. So one day, someone just knocked in the factory, said, just move aside and put a radio there, bam. And he was out of a job. But he couldn't predict it. We could predict, we know. You read that article, you see the Medium article that says like machine learning is going to take your job. You just close it. No, I'm going to have my job forever. We just ignore that information. If you think it's too far off, let me give you a video that Microsoft released. So you sketch things on paper. They use some AI visual recognition thing, and they can generate components out of this with pretty high accuracy. They know because let's face it, like all of the things that we do look more or less the same. So AI can be trained to actually recognize these things. So your manager, instead of dividing the task to 10 people, he's going to sit on an airplane with a tablet and he's going to draw things. Dun, 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 and then he has a working app. All right? Or another scenario, he might have like an Amazon Echo on the desk. Oh no, this is Microsoft. They're going to throw Clippy. This is going to be amazing when it actually reaches like real apps. So the other scenario is your manager has Amazon Echo on the desk. It's going to be like, Alexa, suggest me a couple of responsive menu styles for that header. And then Alexa just goes through 50 million websites, and then it finds the right one, and it just puts it there. Or he's going to be like, Alexa, move that 3 pixels to the right. Alexa, move that 5 pixels to the left. Alexa, move that 4 pixels to the right. And unlike the designer in your team, she's not going to bitch. She's just going to move the thing left and right, all right? She's not going to say anything. She's just going to do it. So better be prepared. Thank you. You better be prepared unless there's a solution, right? You know how to fix printers. You're going to have a job forever and ever. You'll never be out of job. Or you want to work on legacy systems. This is also valid. Like people, like the most high-paid developers right now in development are people who are working on legacy systems. It's not as fun and as nice, but it's highly paid. So if you want to work on Pascal or COBOL or Angular 1 on these legacy apps, you might do that, right? I love this example. So there's this site, COBOL Cowboys, and their tagline is they're a development team, not our first rodeo, probably because they're in business for 200 years, right? And I was so curious, but I knew it. Like as soon as I click this Meet the Company button, like the oldest developers ever are gonna pop up. And these, my friends, are the senior developers, right? This is their team. They're amazing. This is the junior who is joining this week. And if you think you have benefits in your company, oh, we have a ping pong, and we have the table, and we have a fresh squeezed orange juice, whatever. These guys are getting their blood changed every week. Because if they lose the backend guy, the company is done, right? They gotta be careful. So it's amazing to work on legacy systems. But a more real example that I know of, I'm not gonna name names, but there's this person who I reached out, and I was like, dude, you see, like everyone usually we made the transition from Angular 1 to React. There are many examples who did that. I'm like, why don't you do it? It's like, you don't know how big Angular 1 is and is gonna stay in Asia. They invested so much money into this architecture for their apps and stuff. And they need teams who can support them. They need developers, they need courses, they need materials. So he focused on providing the best materials, the best courses, the best training for them. And he told me, like, I'm making a shit ton of money. I'm like, yeah, sure. And then he posted a couple of sports cars. And I know Redux Saga, and this is what I travel with, all right? So it's all about what do you focus on. So to summarize everything we talked about today in one slide. Stop seeking external approval whenever you're writing code. Stop seeking answers in other projects. Not everyone, like, nobody knows what they're doing, so we're just all having fun. Less abstractions, more copy-paste. This is really important. Don't feel bad for that copy-paste. And recognize breaking points before you move from A to B, so don't jump on hooks on Monday, although everyone's going to talk about it. FOMO is just a side effect of the wrong priorities. I think I'm decreasing my FOMO when I decide I'm going to focus on that thing and ship that product or do that thing. Then the FOMO it doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter there's a conference in the USA that I cannot attend. It doesn't matter. I already have the skills, I can ship the thing, just put the focus on the right thing. Then we have focus on the users, or find your niche, like find something that you're an expert at, and then just make it profitable. And the last thing, the most important thing, you'll be fine without Redux Helicopter 7.4. So I want to thank you very much for listening, and you can find more info about me. I'm Kitze or the Kitze everywhere. Thank you very much. Thanks.